Today we're going to be talking about how to pray from God. And that sounds a little odd in our language, the language of everyday usage, how to pray from God, because typically we don't feel, at least in our language, we don't feel that we are a continual part of the expression of God as God. So we don't think of praying from God, that aspect of ourself which is God. We typically pray to God, right? God, help me. Get me out of this. I've used it still. Don't think it's a bad thing to say, but it is not in alignment with the way that we are becoming to think and experience the divine. In unity, one of the things we're doing is taking the distance from God to us, shrinking it little by little until it becomes us. And so when we do that, we begin to have a very different experience of ourselves, of the nature of the world around us, and how life is. So when God's out there, over there, things happen to us. And we have two aspects, two ways of dealing with that. We can kind of deal with that as though we are the victim of all we see, or we are the effect of all we see. And that becomes a more or less fear-based way of seeing the world, like, what's going to happen next? And then we might get into a next phase in which we're overcoming that and we become the victor. And we are now affecting the world out there. We're winning that one. But there's still a bit of doubt about how safe the place is. It requires us to be on guard, alert, and rigorous in our efforts to make it happen. So that's when it's over there. That's when the divine is something other, some other being, and typically a being. We might have an image of somebody in the sky, or we may not, but basically we think of God as other. Now that in and of itself is not altogether wrong, it's just a phase. What I would like to propose is it not be the last phase in your spiritual experience, but a phase. And then coming closer, as you bring it closer, then you begin to feel that God is working through you. God speaks through you. It gives you intuition through you that it tells you what to do, and then you go off and do it, and you find that you have success, or you find that you're on it. Maybe it wasn't easy, but it worked, whatever it was. Maybe it was the hardest thing you ever did, but you followed that guidance and it worked. And that's another phase. And that's a phase in which you're having a relationship, not so much as it's so distant, but it's beginning to be part of you. It's part of who you are as a being. You are an expression. You're expressing it in the way you act and move and the like. There is one more phase, a little even closer, and that is when it is as you, when the divine is you. Not you are God omnipotent above all others, but you and all that you see are part of that God, and that gap between you and it has disappeared. And you could say, as Jesus said, the Father and I are one. Or you could sit like Buddha and be fully awake. Or you could be that person that has no fear, for there is no other out there. And that could be your experience. Now, when you think about that, you might say, well, I've had some of each. It's maybe not a phase in time, but a phase through time. You have some of each going on. At times you may feel like God is speaking to you, or you may feel like the world is you're dominating the world, you're winning the war of existence, or you may feel you're at the effect, or occasionally you may have that time when you just are in stillness, and all is well. What unity is based on is these phases where God speaks through you and when God is you. Now, when God speaks through you, here's a technical term, semi-non-dual. Your semi-non-dual experience, which means that you're kind of in it and out of it, as it's not complete oneness. And then the non-dual experience is the one where it's just you, or it, or all, however you say it. That's the non-dual experience. And the goal, essentially, of spiritual awakening has been for that experience to become your predominant experience, in which you're as that. You are that. We speak sometimes here in church like that, but on the street, typically we don't. And typically, when we pray, we don't. Unless we've been a prayer chaplain or been thoroughly trained in some way, we tend to not speak that way. We tend to pray to God, help me, do something for me, speak through me, something. Not wrong, just a way that doesn't invoke the highest, most direct experience of the divine. And so to speak from God and to pray from God is essentially what I'd like to talk about today, because that would allow the language to align with your spiritual highest development, rather than speaking from a lower or less intense experience of the divine, in essence less powerful place. Speak from God, not to God. How does that work? Well, you might approach it slowly. Reminds me of a story. This family, it was a blended, multi-generational family living in the same house. And the parents, the middle generation, went on vacation, and they called home and spoke to their daughter and said, "How are things going?" And she said, "Oh, the cat fell off the roof and died." And it was devastating to the parents. And they said, "Listen, if you ever have bad news like that, start off slowly and just say, 'The cat's on the roof.' And next time when we call back, you'll say, 'Well, it looked like the cat might have slipped.' And then tell us that, oh, the cat was injured. And in the next phone call, and finally say, 'The cat died.' Let us get used to it. By the way, how's grandmother? She's on the roof." So here we go, working up to it. Typically, since we have this resistance to actually feeling the state that we are God, we can use phrases which deny the power of the circumstances to control the way we think and feel. These are called denials in Unity's old way of saying it. It might sound better because now when we think of denials, we think somebody's not admitting something is real. This is not that. It denies the power of something else to control the way you experience life. That's what a denial is. You are saying that, let's say you broke your leg, and you could say, "My broken leg does not preclude me from having the experience of love, joy, or happiness." And you may be feeling like all is lost, but the truth is there is the event, and then there actually is a gap, whether you've noticed it yet or not. There is a gap between that and your experience. There's the thing that happened and your reaction to it. There is a gap, and it may feel like there's none, and that's where you use this denial. You say, there is that, but I am free from being controlled by that. It's not like my leg doesn't hurt. It's just that I am not controlled. You do not own me. Didn't you tell that to your brother or sister? You don't own me. Remember that? Nothing that happens out there can control you if you will find the gap. And so that's what the denial is about expanding the gap to where you can experience it. You go, it's there, I'm here. Step one. Step two is to recognize that God is essentially a principle meaning that God is unchanging, God is constant. Now, a principle of math is that when you add two numbers together, you get a particular sum, like 2 and 2 equals 4. It doesn't equal 3, it doesn't equal 5. 2 and 2 equals 4. That's a principle. That's a way of thinking of math as principle. A way of thinking of God is good, in the good sense of evolving. Now, forgive me, this language I'm using is limited, and every time I read somebody talking about God, I go, yeah, but there's this other side of it too, right? So since we can't talk about everything at once, just go with me on this, right? So God is like principle. God is love, peace, kindness, awareness, wisdom, grace, etc. We're taking the good side on this one, right? God is that. And we, being part of, growing out of this God, kind of like an acorn grows off an oak tree and has the same qualities as the oak tree embedded in it, though it hasn't been fully realized yet. Just as we are an acorn off the oak tree, so we are a piece of God with the full components, all those components within us, not yet realized fully, but in potential. That is who we are. And so when we speak from God, we say, God is love, and then we say, I am love. To activate that potential within us, we say, I am. Not like I will be, not like I could have been, but like I am. I am that. And this is a very bold declaration, right? You know, Jesus was kind of fond of this phrase. He would say, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the light, right? Was he talking from his very small body sense? He was talking from his divine sense when he said, I am. He and the Father are one. He and the source are the same. So when he says that, he has the authority to declare it, and so it is. And so when a person like Jesus, who gets this completely, I mean, even before Charles Fillmore, he got it. And he says, I am the resurrection. Who would say that? But someone who could see the potential to make it so, right? I am what? The resurrection. He declares something before it is done. Before it's actually happened, he declared, he owned it, he became it. That's the I am, the strength of the I am. So you take the quality of God and you actually incorporate it as yourself, because it is you. I was listening to Alan Watts. And Alan Watts, in this series that I'm listening to, is talking a lot about how humans have got the idea that they are separate from the rest of the world or the universe, that we are somehow oddly a unique, almost alien thing, especially here. And I hear some people say, I don't belong on this earth. It's like, and Alan Watts would say, actually, it kind of works differently than that. That you are, you grew out of the earth. You are the manifestation of the earth. You're not like something dropped in here. You came out of it. Starting with the birds and the bees, let's just start with bees and flowers. Because bees have an encapsulated organism, it looks like, it's easy to think they're separate from the flower, but there's no flower without the bee and no bee without the flower. So it's kind of like saying they're one organism. That the real way nature works is there's no separate thing at all. It all binds together. It's why we call it ecology. The whole thing is a network that needs each other. In some places it seems more obvious than others, but just think about you walking uphill. If you were to walk uphill, could you, let's say you wanted to get to 300 feet, the way you would do it would be to walk up a mountain, right? So how are you the mountain in this experience? Without the mountain, you couldn't make it at all. You're not separate. You are, it is all you, all one thing working together. And so it is with the thoughts about what it is to be divine. We have an encapsulated skin, and therefore we're separate from the world. We also are not but we are also not separate from the divine. And though it may seem like there is no way we could claim the power of the divine, that is exactly what you are in potential. The most amazing thing out there. You are that very thing we have called God in potential. And so you claim it. I am. That becomes the beginning of a sentence in which you put a predicate afterwards. What will you use? Well, if you're having a hard time with getting along with people, you might say, I am harmony. Or if you're finding that your heart is crusted over, you might say, I am love. Or if you're feeling ill, you might say, I am health. Because the principles of God don't change, just like 2 + 2 don't change according to circumstances. So neither does your innate potential never change just because your circumstances have changed. Just because there's no money in the bank doesn't mean you're not prosperous, because God is prosperity itself. So you claim it. You own it. I am prosperous. Even though there is no physical evidence in front of you to prove that to be true, the deeper truth is in potential as a piece of the divine. You have it. And always have had it. And always will have it. And if you can disconnect your mind from your circumstances long enough to see the truth, you could say with all honesty and sincerity, yes, I am prosperous. Yes, I am healthy. Yes, I am free. Yes, I live in love. Yes, I am wise. So when circumstances tend to cloud out that realization, that's when you use the denial and say, these circumstances don't control me. But I am the principle, not the condition. It's bold. It's not the way most people talk. You may not want to say it in public. I don't know. But it's the truth. At the level that we're talking about, it is the truth. At the phase we're talking about, it is the truth. And the words now agree with the truth when you say it that way. So first you say, I am that. And then you let it percolate in you until it becomes real. Till you realize it. You go, I get this. I really am that. And if you're like me, when it came to prosperity and I had been feeling poor for 15 years, I had to say it a lot because I was very sure that my circumstances were proving it otherwise. And so it wasn't, I came in the back door. I said the affirmation until I got the realization. And I had to keep doing it until it happened because I was really tired of being poor. Anybody here tired of being something and would really like to change it? And you go, well, how often would I have to make that prayer? And I go, well, for me it was probably 100,000 times. And I'm not kidding about the number. Maybe more. But it's cheaper than being poor the rest of your life, isn't it? Cheaper than being always feeling inadequate because you feel poor no matter what's happening, right? If you want to make a change, you may have to make the effort. But the truth is, you are that acorn falling off the tree of the divine, and that's your potential. Claim something you really want and go for it, because it is your birthright. You were born divine. You have never been just your circumstances. Change your mind and change your experience. I am, declare it. Do it until you realize it. And you may do it by sitting in meditation. It may come to you by being quiet. It may be you're the contemplative type that needs to sit in quiet and cogitate and feel and expand your consciousness and become bigger and bigger in that way. Or you may be the person who has to stand on the mountaintop and scream it, but do it till you get it. And then it's yours. And you're no longer, the circumstances can no longer be the determinant of your experience. So you come to the place of realization. When you come to realization, know that you can act that out. You can act as a prosperous person, as a healthy person, as a wise person. You can have what you need to have. You can do what is yours to do, because now you're in touch with something greater than circumstances, greater than the past, greater than what other people think you can do, greater than what you've been told as a child you could do, greater than all the stories that you've heard all your life, greater than that, because the principle never changes. The potential is always there. The circumstances may be different. And what I am talking about is not so much you will always have $100 million in the bank. What you will always have is the realization that you are that, the sensation that you are that, the feeling state that you are that. You don't have to have the money to be rich. You don't have to have an unbroken leg to be healthy. You don't have to be the only one that someone loves to be loved. You don't need all that, because your experience is beyond circumstance. You are claiming divine experiences, not because you're mortal, but because you are not simply what you see. There is more than this. And this awakening is really why we want to have the money in the first place. We want to have the money so we have the experience. I am prosperous. I have what I need. We want to have the health so that we feel vigorous. But if you feel alive and you still have a broken leg, life is still working for you, right? You want to have the experience of being loved. But if you are filled with love because you are filled with love, okay. So she still says, you're too ugly for me. It doesn't matter, right? Because you are loved beyond any need. This is where we're going. This is the deeper awakening of what it means to be God, is that you can have in this lifetime the experience that you thought only others could have. But this potential is in you like the tree is in the acorn. And we just need to nurture it and grow it and let it become. You can stay a victim, you can stay a victor, you can hear God talking to you, or you could be it. And you may do all those within one day, but this way of praying is inviting you to be it. Remember, my mother had this phrase. I was going to give it to you before telling you it was my mother. My mother used to say this to us as little children, even as adults. Tell them who you damn are. Claim it. She used to tell us that because when I was at a certain age, we just didn't have anything, right? But we had that. We could tell them who we damn are, right? Same for you. Whether you have it now or not, claim it. It is you, just as true as anything. Let us pray. Feel it to your hearts. Let the breath and the attention and the feeling be in the heart. Believe that you are the one that is at one with the one. Take a chance on that. Take a chance that the very love and grace that you've always sought is already here. Take a chance that the feeling of belonging is already here. That wisdom is already here. That peace is already here. I am. And so you are. And so it is. Amen. I hope you got something out of today's service. We intend to bring you things that will help you in your life become more of who you want to be, give you the freedom of forgiveness and the hope of expectancy that your life will unfold in a way that brings you joy, happiness, and is a contribution to the world. If you would like to contribute to this ministry, please go to unitytriangle.org, hit the donate button, and it will lead you into an easy way of doing that. We thank you for your attention and look forward to seeing you again here.